one reason why I started like doing this. I used to like I used to not really understand when guys did the bald head and the beard thing. I used to kind of low key make fun of it.
Yeah.
But like so the last competition I did, I was looking at pictures that Tracy took, and the hairline was like here, and I'm like, who's that guy? I'm like, I'm like, that's not me. She's like, no, that's you. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, are you sure you're not taking a picture of some other guy? Like,
See the
and it's
hairline.
like, yeah, it's just, and then as you know, because we grew up together, I've been picked on for my hairline that looked like it was a receding hairline since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So now it's actually receding. So I'm like, you know what? It's got to go. So then I shave my head, and then Raven and Tracy are like, the eyebrow, Treyvis, it's too much. Because if I shave the head and the face, it's just eyebrow. Like I got the Eugene Levy look going on. So I had to trim those down and have to keep the beard because it just has to balance out the eyebrow, thing going.
Yeah, you look like Saitama from One Punch Man.
What was that?
With just the eyebrows, you look like Saitama from One Punch Man.
I haven't watched that. That's one of the ones I should watch. But yeah.
It's goofy.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what's got me doing this. I was worried that it would be perceived that since I started doing jujitsu, I got to shave my head now because pretty much everybody at jujitsu has a shaved head. But it's just I'm old and don't have as much hair, so it's like, why bother having hair if it's
you talked about everybody making fun of you having that receding hairline. So I've got a question from our past. Is that why you always wore a hat?
No. I used to buzz my hair and stuff all the time. I wouldn't really care about it. It's just the hat, honestly, it was when I was a kid, wanted to be a cowboy, wanted to be like Grandpa. Grandpa never wore a hat though, but Grandpa was that cowboy guy. So I'm like, I'm going to get the hat. He had the flat top haircut. I tried that when I was a kid. It looked dumb on me. He had that cool widow's peak, so it looked great. And it didn't look good on me. So I went with the hat. And then especially once I got that leather hat and all the girls were like, oh, I love your hat. And they'd like take my hat and wear it and stuff. It was like a thing that worked for girls. So, that's pretty much the hat just stuck.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I was completely vain as a teenager, so I'm not even going to say anything really. I ended up shaving my head. The reason why my normal time shaving head is I actually get a heat rash on the back of my head when I have hair. So I just keep it shaved and I don't have a problem. That being said, my wife likes my beard, so I have a beard.
Yeah. It's crazy. The things that like I used to kind of look down on a little bit, it's like I end up doing a lot of it's as we get older.
Yeah.
So so the world is crazy right now, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's oh man, people. Have you ever heard of the term Hegelian dialectics?
No. I think dialectics, I've heard that, but
it's a form of persuasion, of argument persuasion. I've only done minimal looking into it. I've read a couple of articles. I've kind of looked into it, but from the gist of it that I understood is it comes from a premise of because some do, all are.
Okay.
Does that make sense? The idea there. And so what ends up happening is our culture has been inundated with this idea that because some, then all, and that's across the board. I mean, if currently in our landscape of division in the country, if you look at whether are you angry with Trumpers? Are you angry with liberals? Are you angry with Christians? Are you angry with atheists? Are you angry with Muslims? Are you angry with any demographic that you can name? Then that means you've probably been brainwashed by this idea of because some have all. It's really sad because we've lost the truth that just because somebody has a different opinion than you, just because they disagree with you, does not mean that they're evil. Some people are, and some people who disagree with you are, and the things that they may espouse may be evil, but that doesn't mean that everybody who holds a different line of thought than you is evil. And unfortunately, we've forgotten that, and so we're just divisive enemies.
Yeah, I think I've even fallen into that a little bit. Not so much to the point where I've hated anybody, but yeah, that whole, like, you see some person do one thing, you think everyone's doing it. For example, you see someone lying, you think they're all lying, etc. I think I've fallen into that sort of thing a lot,
For sure.
actually. It's good to be aware of that. It's good to see. It's good to put a name to that, so that way you can be aware of that effect and make sure that you don't fall into it.
So much, because, like, we all have our own persuasion. I'm a conservative. I believe that Trump was actually a decent president. I did not like the guy personally. I don't like the guy. I don't like his attitude.
It's so much the story across the board. It's like, on paper, he looked good, man. I mean, especially as a businessman and myself, it's like, okay, like, honestly, his policies improved my quality of life and everyone else's around me, even the ones that didn't like him, even my neighbors and stuff that, like, hated the guy. I'm like, your life is better right now. Like, because of this guy. He's just a buffoon. And I don't like him as a person. I thought it was funny when he got elected, and I'm like, you know what? All the rednecks are raging about this guy, and we used to make fun of three types of people. Okay, reality TV stars, like we as in rednecks, used to make fun of reality TV stars, people from New York, and politicians. And here he is now, all three of them in one person, and the rednecks love him. I thought it was a weird thing that happened, but just to be a little.
At that time, you have to remember, though, at that time, it was many people were feeling very oppressed because of the censorship of speech through political correctness. And that really a fault for what rises to a guy who doesn't have social graces coming to where he did. Well, it's because of political correctness. It was so bad, it was so oppressive, that somebody rose up who said, "No, I don't care about political correctness," and then everybody's like, "Yes, that's what we need."
It's true, so too. It's like you say, yeah, that's absolutely true. That had to be a huge part of it, because right at that time, it was like, if you said anything, if you had said anything 10 years ago, it was like, I mean, I thought that we thought that it was bad when we were teenagers.
I mean, like, looking back on it, like, and I know I'm going to sound like an old man, the 90s were like the best years in the world. People were doing all right. You didn't have the race tensions we have today. You didn't have the lack of freedom. I remember during the Obama years, and keep in mind, I'm not going to tarnish any president or anything like that, but I do remember his years that it felt very oppressive. It felt like you were degraded, and you were very down, and you had to be scared and careful about what you said,
which wasn't anything he said to make happen. It wasn't, like you said, you're not blaming Obama for that per se.
It's that time.
Yeah,
that's what was going on. It was very oppressive, and then finally, the pendulum swings, and then you go to the other extreme spectrum for a while, and then we wonder why this stuff happens. We need to find that middle ground of freedom, and really hold both sides accountable too, because we're not.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. I get this weird effect where, like, because I've been working in the oil field a lot, right? And not the last year or so, but before that. And it's like, okay, I like guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got one right now. Yeah. I love guns. So I'll be talking to these oil field guys, and I'll be like talking about guns, and they're all like, "You like guns? Hell yeah! Vote for Trump, make America great again, and we're gonna build the wall." And I'm like, "Well, calm down. Like, I'm not, like, we'll need to talk a little more about this wall thing. Like, I'm not saying it's a the worst idea in the world, but I'm just saying, just because I'm on board with guns doesn't mean I'm like all out Republican. Okay,
But
like
because all some, remember.
exactly. That's the all some thing. It's like, whoa, calm down, man. Like, just chill out. Like, I like guns. You don't know that I care about this wall. I'm fairly neutral on the wall personally, but like, chill out, man. I'm not gonna just throw on a red hat and start screaming.
Yeah. Yeah. I like I said, I like the guy's policies for the most part, but I never wore a red hat.
No.
And the reason is simply because I don't 100% align with him, just like I don't 100% align with almost very few people do I 100% align with, especially having my faith being a part of that, becoming a pastor, which I'm sure was shocking for you and the rest of our friends at the time. But
I can't say I was too surprised, but yeah, most people were surprised.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But with that, like I have other things that I care about worldly that don't really even go align with any politics. And holding that ground, it's interesting when you hold that ground, even though a lot of conservatives claim being Republican, a lot of Democrats or liberals claim to be claim to be Christian. A lot of Republicans claim to be Christian. I get in trouble both sides. I have been lit up by both sides because
that's the crazy part is if you say anything that's true, you're gonna get hit by both sides of this.
Oh yeah,
it's really nuts. I've had my cousin, because I was kind of with the when they were building that pipeline through the reservation up there in North Dakota. I was kind of on the left side of that because I'm like, it's theirs. They don't want you to build it there. It's pretty simple. And I wasn't even like getting into the water protectors or anything like that. I'm like, it's theirs. It's not ours. It's theirs. Why are we building something through something that's not ours?
In that case, I totally agree with you, by the way, because if it's theirs, then and they say no, then tough, find a way around.
Yeah, find a way around. We'll get our oil. It's not going to happen. It'll make more jobs, honestly, for truckers like me hauling the crude. I'm cool with that. I don't care. It was pretty simple to me. I said that. I had like a couple of my cousins like freaking out at me. They're eco-terrorists or whatever. I'm like, dude, you don't even work in the oil field. You don't even know. Like, you're not eco-terrorists, all right? I mean, we're drilling holes into the crust of the freaking earth to pull out something that we don't honestly know what it's supposed to be doing in there. Like, there's some legitimate understanding as to there are legitimate reasons why we shouldn't be doing that, actually, but we need to right now. That's all it is. It's just we need to right now. We should take it for what it is. We shouldn't be like just on this one side. Global warming is fake and all this other stuff. They're eco-terrorists. I'm like, no, they're just people who don't want something built through their land. It's pretty simple.
For me, that's all that matters. The other nonsense that comes with it, I'm not really a partaker of. We've got, I think it's called the Line 5 pipeline or something like that. Anyways, in Michigan, they want to do one in the Straits of Mackinac, which is in Lake Michigan there. And I'm totally for that because how often do you hear of pipelines breaking versus how often do you hear of crude oil being spilled out of, no offense, trucks or boats?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at what you're doing. You're putting it in a thing and hauling it on the road.
You're worried about emissions or global warming, which for me, it's not much of an issue, but you're worried about global warming. Well, if you're really worried about it and they say the trucks cause it and all that, then why do you want that much crude oil being trucked when it could be shipped with zero emissions through a pipeline?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do agree with that. That is very true. They would argue that the pipelines have broken. I mean, they'll pull up 100-year timeline on the thing of it. I'm like, well, pipelines will break eventually. They are a finite piece of technology. It's not perfect, but
study of how much oil has been spilled through pipeline versus how much oil has been spilled through tankers and trucks.
Yeah, it's staggering. Yeah. Yeah. So if you look at the amount of oil that got spilled versus the other, there you go. And another thing is what people don't realize is since I work in the oil field, I know that the answer to not being able to be able to move the oil is actually to poke more holes in a certain area, in a given area. Well, look at Riverton, Wyoming. Riverton, Wyoming has to have all of their drinking water and potable water bought for them by British Petroleum. because because of basically the concrete job in regards to the production casing of a few of their wells was done wrong, and it tainted the whole water supply for the whole city. So it's like, well, that's the answer to not being able to pipe it, is to poke more holes to compensate for that. So if you don't want us to poke more holes into that ground, maybe pipe it, and then that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a specific case, and that may have happened anyways. But there's more likelihood of that happening because they're right around the corner here. They're poking holes right near my house.
Oh wow!
So, which is fine. I get actually a little bit of money for it, for having a house near it. Yeah, and I was, had a good time of making some money hauling the frac sand for it right next to my house. Could swing right through town and swing by the house and get some food real quick, and but I don't do that anymore. Just beat the truck up too much. So I'm just saying though, like, if you don't want these holes right here, make it to where we could have piped it from here instead of needing to keep drilling.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So what do you think about this DC stuff? I haven't honestly looked into it much.
So there is one topic that I'm going to avoid like the plague.
Oh yeah.
And the reason why is because there is so much emotion, so many people up in arms. And from my position, as a leader in my community, and should anybody hear it or anything, and where I am, I'm doing my best just to try to keep people unified and calm. And so for me to throw out opinions, I'll have half of the people like hate me, and it's like, I have to be careful.
Sure.
Actually, I'll probably 75% of the people hate me because I won't be enough on one side versus the other. It's a nightmare, dude.
Yeah, fair enough. What I'm gonna say is to anyone on my friends list and stuff like that is everyone and this kind of goes into what we've already been talking about. They do this thing where they get into these Facebook arguments or social media in general, and they think that they'll make one comment and they think that they've boiled that whole situation down. And it's like, I'm making a policy of myself. Any of these big topics, if you want to talk to me about them, I'll talk about them because they're important things to talk about. But I'm not going to talk about them on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I will talk about them honestly. I'll talk about them like on the phone, and I'm only going to do it if I'm willing to record it because people get so insulting. And so I'm like, if you don't want what you're saying out there, then I don't want to hear it because it gets so insulting. I've had to block family members and stuff like that because if you don't believe what they believe, it's like you're a horrible person. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
this is just toxic and septic, and I want to actually talk about it. But you make a counterpoint on a Facebook comment, you think that that's the whole truth. I'm like, no, that's a counterpoint. Okay. And so if any of my friends, if any of our friends think that I'm avoiding the subject, it's not that I'm avoiding the subject. It's that I know that we cannot come to a clear, concise truth on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. It can't be done. This is that every single one of these situations is such a nuance, thing that it would have to be broken down. And there's no one meme with 8 words that's going to be, going to end my opinion, about it. And yeah, that's what I think. I will not talk about it on social media.
The only thing that I can say on it is simply forgiveness, and that's all I'm going to go. I'm going to say forgiveness to everybody, because it's the only way that's the only thing that can be said that can't be taken the wrong way. And, I think everybody needs to kind of step back and think about it for a minute.
Yeah. Move forward. Try to, there's one thing I like about, not necessarily Buddhist, like specific Buddhist doctrines, but you've known me long enough to know that I did enough of the Eastern martial arts to kind of get a little bit of an influence from Buddhism and Taoism. And one of the things I love about it is basically hinged on the idea that you have to look into yourself, and that's it. Like that's all you're doing in most of those practices is you got to look into yourself. I think more people need to do that right now. They need to stop looking at pointing fingers and everything and just make your own bed first. Kind of like Jordan Peterson says, you want to change the world, you might need to make your own bed first. Look at what you're doing. Try to be a better person in regards to yourself. Stop,
So I think we're going to get to have our first counterpoint of disagreements here. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing, right? Because we can do so unlike this world and still love each other and everything. For me, I think the problem is that we've looked too far at self, and this is the outcome. I personally think, and obviously this comes from my theology, of course, is that we need to let go of self. We got to stop thinking of self, stop thinking of ourself so much, and really think of what's good for everybody else, not in the enforcement of good for everybody else, but me, myself, being like owning where I'm at about myself and how I can change myself to be better for everybody else. If we all thought like that, this I think would come together a lot better. But I believe our culture is a self-worshiping culture that leads to where we're at, and that's my opinion on it.
Oh yeah, so obviously, you got a little bit of a spectrum here, right? You got one side to the other, and that's why. I mean, we can go into all sorts of yin and yang conversations about this. The fact of the matter is that's also, look, I'm Christian as well, so it's like, when you know that you're not in it alone, right? Mm-hmm. Not only do you have your community, but you have God, and you've got forgiveness and everything like that. It kind of takes the pressure off, and because that's a lot of pressure. A lot of this stuff is like this is there. A lot of people have legitimate drama and strife in their lives, and they feel like they're in it alone. So it's like when you have God and when you have Jesus on your side, you're not alone, right? So that's kind of a little bit of a flip side of the same coin in regards to so then that makes it easier to look into yourself in regards to your own actions. So it's not to say only look into yourself. I'm just saying I think people are selfish and they I don't know how to word this. Well, I mean, I think that people are selfish. So when they're looking at themselves, they're only thinking about themselves. Mm-hmm. When I say that look into yourself, I'm thinking that you need to look and see what you can do to change, whether it be improve yourself as a person, be a better part of your community, things. It's more like you're removing the plank from your own eye.
Yeah.
Before you just suspect, and that's what I'm trying to say with that. But I do agree that it's weird because I've had an argument. It was on the subject of the face masks, and I was making a point to one of our friends actually, and I was making the point that, like, I understand the mask is meant to be like a filter, right? But I had this concern about your own health if you were wearing the mask, right? And I'm like, well, and that's still debatable in my mind. But so I'm not trying to get on the mask subject per se. I'm just using this as a vehicle. So I was saying that isn't the better way to keep me from spreading sickness is to not be sick, is to not get sick. So if I'm making sure I get good airways and stuff like that, isn't that a better way for me to not get sick? Because then if I'm not sick, I can't make people sick. And this one other person who I don't know got on there and was like, you're just thinking too much about the self and stuff like that. And I'm like, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, you're not really telling me how I'm wrong, right? And they were trying to make it seem like I was selfish because I was worried about me getting sick. And I'm like, look, I'm a able-bodied
their argument, and now they have to attack you, which is generally how because we don't know how to communicate with facts anymore. The moment that we have lost our subject, now our emotions take control. We believe our emotions are, unfortunately, because of Disney and everything, follow your heart nonsense. We believe our emotions are everything. And then, so instead, now that my truth is no longer truth because you've factually beat me, maybe, then I'm going to attack you as a person.
Yeah. And in that subject, it was a big maybe because I'm honestly not even sure about that particular argument. Like, because I've learned different things about breathing. I've been reading about different breathing techniques in different cultures throughout the world. And there's actually a really good importance of not breathing oxygen as much. And actually, carbon dioxide is actually pretty important for your system. So, like, there are counterpoints to what I was saying. It's just,
they just didn't know it, so they attacked. And
so
that's
yeah.
right. What I am saying is they didn't know it. They reached the end of their facts, and because our culture, first of all, you can't be wrong, which is
Right.
evil. We need to be able to be wrong. It's okay if you're wrong, and I tell that to my son all the time. And then secondly, you need to accept or research more instead of attacking. Like, don't invest your emotions into something that you can't, you haven't fully studied out. But once again, people go to a narrative, they follow their heart, and that leads to trouble.
Yeah. I don't know if you, I'm sure that there's plenty of other literature that you've come across that enforces that idea. But there's also Miyamoto Musashi, right? You know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Book of Five Rings, but in the Dakota, which is basically just like 8 lines. It's not even a piece of literature. He wrote it towards the end of his life to give as a guide to one of his beloved students as to how to live. And one of those things is to take things as they are and not be emotionally attached to your ideas. It's
right there.
absolutely true. It's very simply put, and that's a good way to do it. It's so easy though. Like, I do that too though. It is so easy to be like, oh, like,
I always tell people you got to look it in the face.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult part. Like, and we won't, because of our emotions, because of our emotion led, we feel like our emotions should lead us and things like that. We don't look things in the face, especially when the glaring reality is so contrary to how we feel about things. And you just got to look it in the face and say, all right, let's change our minds. Let's change our minds to reality. Let's change our minds to fact. That's, if we could do that, I think those of us who can are seen as what's the term? Seen as almost like enemies or even like predators, like different
It's sheepdog thing, kind of. It's kind of like the sheepdog thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's 2 parts to that analogy. One is, all right, one is there to protect you, and the other is the wolf, and it's a predator. But the other part of that is from the sheep's perspective. It's the fact that they can't tell the difference between between something that is a good thing that's initiated and something that's a bad thing that's initiated. They're just so uninitiated that they can't even tell. They see something that's initiated and authoritative and confident and different. They see the body language of the wolf. They see the slow, languid movements. They see the eye contact. They see the front mounted eyes. They see the teeth, and they stop there. They stop dead in tracks. And so, people need to remember that some of this is good. Like, you need
and
it.
if you throw your emotions away, you're going to grow and learn, especially if you're willing to be wrong.
Yeah. And if you boil things down, if you bounce your ideas off of someone who thinks differently than you, okay, yeah, for one, you got the added effect of maybe you see a different perspective. Maybe you learn something. God forbid you learn something, right? But another thing is it might actually boil down to, well, this is something that is like you might not be able to, you might boil it down to factually would be one way, but the right way actually might be more of an emotional thing. That does happen occasionally, I can't really give you an example right now, but I think that could happen. So it's not even to say that there isn't going to be a time where we have to follow our heart, but those are very few and far between. Most things.
In my mind, if you always follow your mind and the facts, where your mind goes, your heart will follow.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like been the truth in my life so much. It's hard to understand that concept, but sorry, my son just walked by and I'm like, go away. And then I got all distracted. Anyways, yeah. So where your mind leads, your heart will follow. And we've just got it mixed up. We started to think that the feelings are what's supposed to lead us when feelings are to experience life. Our mind is to live life. Feelings are to experience life. And so once we found the truth, we can then invest feelings in the truth, so long as the feelings don't trump what reality is. And when you do that, you're going to live a life much more capable. I think the more we've moved towards that feeling-led life, the further away from humans we've become and more like animals. And you see this animalistic nature in so many people who just get caught and stuck in, like, it's crazy. Their life goes terrible, and they're always asking the same question: why does this stuff always happen to me? Why does this stuff always happen? And it's because, well, you're following your emotions and you're not living with reality.
Yeah, some amount of it is their own actions that led them there. And then another amount of it is sorry, sometimes bad things happen, period. Yep. And that's just part of life. Like,
the difference in the outcome is how you respond.
Sure. Because, I mean, look, none of us are getting out of this thing alive, right? So to speak, in a sense. We're not coming out of life unscathed. Like, we're all going to suffer. We're all going to have happiness. We're all going to have all of the things. It's like you said, it's how we respond to it. One thing that gives guys like us, or people like us, to be gender neutral, So one thing that gives people like us an advantage in this sort of thing is that we grew up with a warrior mindset, right? Yeah. Not only practicing martial arts, but we did we were nature orientated, hunting and fishing and things like that, and that involves us having an integration between our feelings and our logical processes. We had to integrate those things. Think about it. I mean, I think that we've talked about this before, but you're in the woods. You hear a noise. It's just a squeak, right? If it was only our logical process, we would think it's just a squeak, and then we'd have to go figure out what it is. And maybe when we were kids, we had to go do that, right? But if you integrate your feelings are kind of like part of your communication into your cognitive mind, right? So you could get the feeling, kind of like a hunch, right? That squeak was a tree rubbing up on another tree, and it's not an animal. Or you get the feeling that it was an animal, and you need to go get it, or whatever. So we've had to integrate our feelings and our emotions in with our logical processes just through our woodsmanship, much less martial arts, where that's a it's a very high integration of those things. You can't anticipate what that person is doing, but Frankie and I had sparred so many times that you do get your emotional, like I can see his body language, see his emotional state, and get an idea of what he was going to do. So you can integrate your feelings with your logical process. And I think most people don't have that integration. They just go straight to just the feelings. Because if you don't have the integration, your logical mind is lost, and your feelings are just the way you're perceiving the world, and that's it. You're literally feeling your way through the world.
But you've got to use your brain. You've got to use logic and reality to keep it in check. Yeah. Coming from the biblical perspective, it says, I believe it's Jeremiah. Sorry, my brain's not working. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? The idea being there that emotions left to themselves unchecked will always lead to ruin. They just will simply, that's how it works. And same thing with martial arts. I mean, when you're fighting, if you go into a rage, you're going to lose. You become wild. You're going to telegraph your punches. You're going to telegraph your kicks. Because you're trying to just destroy. And what ends up happening, unless if you're significantly stronger than your opponent, what ends up happening is they're going to maintain calm. They're going to see that telegraph. They're going to be able to dodge or block. They're going to be able to move and counter strike. And you're not even going to see the counter strike coming because you're just blinded by your need to destroy. And that's all your emotion, and you lose.
Yeah. 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 I mean, and then, and then that begs the question, why do we feel the anger? Why do we, if you go into rage, because you get angry, even when you're, for those who don't know, even when you're sparring, sometimes someone gets a position on you and it feels bad. Like you feel like crap. You're like, wow, man, I thought I was better than, and it doesn't matter. I've been at it for 30 years. Okay. And I felt like that last night doing jujitsu. Yeah, I felt like that last night. I was bummed out. I'm like, I feel like crap. You have to do that to yourself in a controlled, padded room, with other people who are there to help you go through it. That's a good thing for your body, for your mind and your body to go through, to feel all those feelings and control it. But it begs the question, why do we feel that way? Well, the reason why is because it does give you advantages. You will be stronger. You have adrenaline going. Your senses are dulled in some ways, but in some ways you're driven and you're focused more when you have that rage a little bit, right? So the idea is, again, to integrate that, use that with your control that, use it. It doesn't mean don't have it. It doesn't mean don't get angry.
Turn it into determination, though, because the anger part is the unruly part. But if you were to turn it into determination, that's where that strength comes from. I think that you're talking about, because just the anger in and of itself is stupid. Anger always leads to stupidity. But turning it into determination is where you have that calmness, that calm determination to get it done, which then allows you to break your limits and everything else. And of course, people do break their limits in anger, but generally when they do that, they do it with the stupidity.
It's not going to be like, maybe you could, you hear about the stories about, a parent lifting a vehicle off their kid or something like that. Yeah. That's where it makes sense. You be as rageful as you want, there's no, it's good. You got a person trying to punch you, or stab you or something. It's a different story. You have to, like you said, basically that's what happens when you integrate your logical process with your emotion. You can turn anger to determination. It's a good way to put it.
I tell all the young men that I disciple, and I'm being counter gender neutral-ish or whatever, but I ask them this question, and I'm hoping to get it out among people because I think we need a definition on this. I ask them, what's being a man? What is it to be a man?
Brought that up. Okay.
And the answer that I have for that is one that I'm going to hold to, and it's controlling yourself for the good of others. That's the good form of the definition I can come up with.
And to the feminists out there, that is a standard that can regularly be met and set by women.
It can be, yeah, but my point being here, because I don't go with a feministic idealism. I believe men were created to be protectors. I believe men were created to be strong and to be providers. Now, that's not saying women can't work or anything like that, but I believe that men were created to be protectors. We were given more strength than women were.
We just got thicker bones. Okay, we got more muscle mass. I'm sorry, but you can't get around that.
And so that the reason why this definition is so important is because of that role, because of that gifting. Our job is to be protectors of the human race, of each other, of children, of women. And in that, with all that power, I'm going to steal from Spidey, comes great responsibility. Men need to control themselves for the good of others. That's how to be the best man you can be.
Yeah, I think so I have a cousin, and just because, it's not like they've asked permission to be included in this podcast, I'm not going to name the cousin, but I think you know him. And he's kind of seems kind of male feminist-ish. And he wrote this whole article about the toxicity of masculinity.
No.
I know. And honestly, most of the article was visual stuff. It was like there was text, and then the text would be at like a weird angle, and there's a picture behind it, and the picture is like a gun or like Clint Eastwood or something like, and what really irks me. I know what really irks me is it was a picture of Clint Eastwood, in the movie Two Mules for Sister Sarah, along with Shirley MacLaine. And if people who don't know who she is, she played Weezer on Steel Magnolias. If you don't, that's a little bit newer of a movie.
I think I've seen it.
Yeah, it's a funny movie. It's got it's got Sally Field. It's got why am I drawing a blank on Pretty Woman? What's her name? She was on Pretty Woman. Was the name?
Yeah, I don't watch those movies.
Okay, fine. I grew up with it though. You know my mom. And so anyways, that movie is about this guy, and then this woman who is pretending to be a nun. She was actually a prostitute, and her trying to make her way. I forget exactly what brought her into the situation, but she was just trying to make her way in a man's world. It was a fairly feminist movie, to be honest, of its time. And she's needing help from this guy, Clint Eastwood, and then he gets injured and can't help her. So she's having to like help him this whole time while these bad guys are after him, and she's having to do all these man things like shoot and blow things up and stuff like that. And the whole point in the movie is about the man going away from his preconceived notions about women and understanding her more, and the woman also getting away from her preconceived notions about men. So I mean, he used a picture from a movie that is actually about being a good man, and he doesn't even know that he used that as the stereotypical picture for toxic masculinity in this article. It's really annoying that he did that.
Let's be honest here. Toxic masculinity, generally, when it's used, isn't about toxic masculinity. It's about masculinity.
We can get into that. I completely agree.
Yeah. It's about the extreme feminist. I'm going to say extreme feminist because feminism was a wonderful thing in the beginning. It really was.
Grandma was basically.
Yeah. Modern feminism, though, is about control, and it's about superiority. Is what it boils down to. Right. So anyways, they don't want standard masculinity, and we see this in multiple ways. Are we allowed to talk about sexuality on your podcast?
I don't care.
Okay, so
talk about whatever. I'm censoring myself for you because I know your following is probably going to be. So if I start dropping truck driver words, so I don't want to exclude them. It isn't like I don't think that they, I just don't want to exclude them. I'm imagining some soccer mom or something like that is making SpaghettiOs for her kids and then starts hearing my trucker mouth and whoa, go turn her phone off.
Yeah, I thank you for that. Just in case any of them do hear that, the thing is with masculinity and that superiority that they're getting with and everything, everything is so one-sided. Everything is so hypocritical. Men need to be men. They need to go out. They need to control themselves, their emotions. Men process emotions differently than women. And this whole nonsense of, give into your emotions and truly feel them and all that. No, guy, you need to man up and you need to take your emotions and control them. You need to exert your control over your emotions so that you can be beneficial to others. And guess what? Sometimes that means you're going to hurt them. What's that?
It doesn't mean don't have them. It doesn't mean don't be sensitive sometimes a little bit, like if you need to be emotionally available, but
totally, but and be secure in that. Like, it's okay if you end up showing emotion, like, hey, I cry when good things happen in movies. I openly cry. That's not what I'm saying. I don't cry, though, when I'm in the middle of a situation and it's all pressure on me and I have to make this stuff work. Because as a man, my job is to stand up and confront my feelings and say, I have to work harder. I have to get past it. Why? Because the need or really the burden of the fact that I was made a man and that I'm here to provide and protect the world is greater. The honor of that is greater than my destruction.
Yeah.
My destruction is second thought to what I have to get done, what I have to accomplish. And that's what masculinity is. But we see the same thing in sexuality. Even, women, feminine sexuality is something that is celebrated in our culture, that oh yeah, the less you wear, the more secure of your body you are, and all this other nonsense that they come up with. But then they refuse to see that there's such a thing as masculine sexuality. They only see that as a toxic thing. They don't see the truth. I'm going to say a really controversial thing right now, just giving you a warning. Here's something very interesting. Men are visually sexual creatures, right?
Mm.
We a process happens when we see what we're attracted to.
Right.
I think any man would agree. Hey, I saw a gorgeous woman, almost naked, and yeah, my mind was like, "Oh, wow, that's nice." That actually is really, really a strong process that happens in us.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's what isn't understood. While women are totally okay to express their sexuality, men can't. Why? Because for men to express their sexuality without control, well, that would be bad. And secondly, here's the craziest thing. As women are like, you know what, we should wear whatever we want and go out and like go to the beach and nothing but a thong and all this stuff, they're actually raping guys. I know that sounds extreme. Check this out. Men are sexually visual creatures. I don't necessarily want to see that, right? And of course, I look away. Yes, I have the onus to look away and control myself. Yes, 100%, a man should control himself.
That's our response to this situation to get through it. Yeah.
But here's the flip side of it. I've talked to many women, my wife, other women, and they have all said the same thing, that they receive sexual gratification by being looked at. If that's true, which I think it is,
mm-hmm.
What they're doing is they are getting unwarranted sexual gratification from men, and that's wrong. Not to mention that they're exposing themselves in front of kids and everything too, which drives me nuts. Sorry, I went on my I went off on my what do you call it, beating post there or whatever on that. But I mean, I think it needs to be stated, if we're going to talk about masculinity, that there is such a thing as masculine sexuality too, and both sexes are equally responsible for each other.
Yeah, and certainly, like, obviously someone could make the argument that they don't feel that way. Like a woman, some women you ask might not feel that way, right? But certainly that woman who is walking around the beach in a thong feels that way. That's why she's doing it. Not trying to be a jerk. It's just that's why she's doing it. Just get everyone to look at her. I mean, you can't tell me that that's the only way to be comfortable on the beach. Yeah, you're sunburnt and stuff. You can't tell me that's the only way to be comfortable physically on the beach. I wear a rash guard on the beach, and I'm a fit dude and stuff. Like, I wear a rash guard. I'm covered head to toe. I'm white. I don't want to get burnt. I grew up getting sunburnt. I don't really want to do that, So, I mean, you can't tell me that, this is the way that you have to dress to be comfortable. It's not true.
As against guys doing it.
Yeah.
Just as against guys doing it.
At the very least, don't have the double standard.
Yeah.
Because the culture doesn't have that double standard. Okay, you knew me in school. Would I have been considered a meathead, like, growing up? No. I got bullied by meatheads, if anything. Yeah. You and I, we got bullied by those guys, right?
Yeah.
We were intellectual people. You and I are sitting there talking about Socrates and stuff, and like in high school. Yeah. So but now I'm older, and I've realized that I have one body, and it's my responsibility to take care of it. So I work it out. And I was making a delivery at a store like a few months ago, a few months ago, because it was hot out. I was wearing a sleeveless shirt, and I was done making the delivery, and I went into Starbucks and getting a coffee, and I'm in line. And I hear this guy behind me, and I turn and I look, and he's got pink hair, he's got gauged ears, he's got purple pants on, and nothing against that. I'm just saying this is you kind. I know we're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but you kind of can judge a book by its cover, you know. And skinny jeans too, like they're like skin tight, hip hugger jeans and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, this is definitely a left leaning person, I tip my hat. And he's on the phone, and I can hear him talking, and he's in a hurry or something. He's like, "Well, I just got to wait for this meathead in front of me to make the order." Like he's used meathead as a derogatory, and I'm like,
because you're masculine and not feminine male.
Yes, and I'm like, look, I've done nothing to you, and you don't know me. Like, I was not a jock. I like music and I like books. I'm not a meathead, but because, like you said, it's like I'm, a masculine male. I got muscle, and that's the only thing he could have possibly known about me, and he's got to call me a name. And I can't help but think that it's because he's not confident, because he's so feminine. Like, and I'm not saying only feminine people can't be confident. I'm just saying he's definitely not able. There's something about being a person that can like run fast and do things and pick up heavy things or like fight that gives you more confidence. And then you feel less of a need to insult other people, and there he is sitting there insulting someone that he doesn't even know. That's just an interesting thing. So it's in regards to my cousin's article, though, is there was a section where he had asked people what it meant to be a man to them, and this is part of the problem. And there are a lot of people that feel like this is what it means to be a man, and it's all about being aggressive and being only tough and aggressive and driven and liking violence and things like that. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a problem that you asked these people this and that's what they thought. But the thing is, I know these people he asked, and they're all basically fatherless sons. So they weren't taught how to be a man the right way. And so I'll agree that there's a problem in regards to men in today's day, but I would not agree with him in regards to what the problem is. And my issue with toxic masculinity is, I know it's kind of a semantics issue when you look at it. It's describing masculinity as toxic, right?
Yeah.
In the way that is. And that makes it where people, they identify masculinity first. They see something that's masculine, it's abrasive, it's loud, it's big, it's physical, or whatever. Like any behavior. It may not necessarily be toxic, right? I could be out in public, I could be loud, I can make a loud joke, right? And that scares people, maybe. And then they see that it's a masculine trait to be loud and abrasive and in your face a little bit, right? And they get scared. And then they label that as toxic. It wasn't toxic. I was trying to be funny. I was trying to make people laugh. I was trying to connect with people. That's the opposite of toxic. It just happened to be in a masculine way.
But that's the problem. They don't. It's not an underhanded thing. They're not talking about just toxicity of some masculine people. They're saying, and they really are saying that all masculinity is toxic. They want men to become feminine. I mean, look at how history or how entertainment has portrayed men. All right. So if you're strong and confident, that means you're dumb. All right. Any TV show, any cartoon, any movie, you name, if you're strong and confident, you're the dumb one. Okay. And then the smart one is always a little timid, not sure of himself person, and that's the smart one. And so you see that idea creeping into culture there, and then it goes even further with the toxic masculinity of feminizing men, where you're only a good man if you act like a woman. And it's like, no. A good man is a man who acts like a man. And I think the biggest thing that we're lacking, you kind of mentioned that there is a problem. And I don't think violence is the problem. I think violence is a good thing for men to be equipped in. My son has been training in martial arts since he could walk. He and I have been doing that together on mitts and everything. And I believe that violence is a good thing for a man to be trained in. That being said, what the real problem is that I think it goes with my answer of what it is to be a man, and that's honor. There is no such thing as honor anymore. There's no standard of right there's no standard of a code of right and wrong for a man to be. It's all completely broken down because any right and wrong for a man to be is going to be that high mark of a man versus where they want men to be.
Yeah, to me it boils down to like responsibilities a lot. You know, as a boy. See, that's another thing is I never really compared being man as to be the opposite of being a woman per se. It was in contrast to being what you were before you were a man, when you were a boy. You didn't have responsibilities. You had no need to push yourself through discomfort, whether it be mental or physical, to achieve something that needed to get done, period, because you had the responsibility to do it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it boils down to responsibility. And then in regards to violence, it's our responsibility to be ready for violence because you know, no matter what, there's violent people in the world. You got to get good at it. You know, can't get around that because here we are seeing it. There's riots. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Berthoud, which is like a neighboring town, like we do some of our grocery shopping there. The posse, as in dudes on horses, ran Antifa out of that town, and it was like a couple miles away. Man, it was very funny to me that, you know, these skinny jean wearing, you know, like half shaved head, like purple haired guys, you know, thought that they were going to run into this, you know, farm town. It's a ranch town. You know, it's hilarious. Dudes on horses literally ran them out of there. And
they were talking about coming downstate to our town, actually, from what I was told. And response from all of our neighbors and everything kept them from coming up here. Basically, the response was, you've watched Tombstone. I think we've watched it together. Every single person, almost to the T, said, "I'm your Huckleberry."
Yeah. That's the thing I don't get. I'm like, okay, you guys. I mean, do you know? Like, look, love them or hate them. Most of these Republicans are. Or a lot of these Republicans are like ex-military rednecks and stuff. They've been to war. They've done this. You guys would be just mincemeat to these people, you know. Like I haven't been to war. I didn't go to join the service. Okay, I do consider myself a tough guy and stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure I'd run through a lot of them. But you know, I know that my cousin, for example, Sean, who is a combat engineer in the Marines, would run through like a lot more. You know, I know that it would not work. Like if you go to that dude's house and you think you're gonna get into that house, good luck. Like seriously. Anyways, you know, they're the violence thing. I love getting on that subject because, you know, I'm a martial artist. So there's a lot of guys that make a lot of great points. Jordan Peterson and Jocko Willink had a podcast, and I love referring to that one on this subject. And that's Jordan Peterson. Do you know who he is? I assume, right? He's such high in the spotlight and stuff. So he's this behavioral psychologist from Canada, from Canuckistan up there, you know, and he I got that term from a Canadian, Stefan Verstappen. Thanks, buddy. That's a good one.
Just to clarify, so I have my my pass on political correctness, right?
Yeah, no.
From a Canadian.
That was from a Canadian. So he got in a lot of trouble because they had a compelled speech law up there that said that you had to use, like, legally you could get in trouble for not using gender preferred pronouns and things like that. And he says, no, I'm not going to listen to you.
I'm going to get in a lot of trouble if they do that here.
Yep. And so that's what got him on the spotlight. But one of the things he likes to do is he likes to take whether it be movies or literature and things like that, and he likes to dissect it down to like this archetype message, you know. And he says that he used Harry Potter. It's a great example. You know, Harry Potter and his group, you know, they were the good guys, right? But if you pay attention, they were breaking a lot of rules.
Oh yeah,
they were doing a lot of bad things, right? Well, what was the difference between them and Malfoy and them, right? And well, the difference is they broke the rules and they did those dangerous and bad things when necessary, right? So then Harry Potter is not only there's a dark side, like there's a dark side to all of us, right? We're capable of bad things if we didn't have all this under control, we're capable of bad things.
Yeah.
Well, literally, Harry Potter's touched by it. He's scarred by it. His soul is part of Voldemort's. So it's a good archetype to go. It's a good display of that archetype to go by. That this character is literally part of that really bad character. So there's something inside him that's as deep and dark as can be, capable of violence, right? Mm-hmm. But the difference between him and these other people is the fact that they have it under voluntary control. And that's why we do martial arts. That's one huge reason why we do martial arts. There's many reasons, but you got to have this under voluntary control. We got to know exactly if, when, why we're going to do it, because we're capable of it. We might have to do it. And I think there's so many people out there, they don't have that under voluntary control, and they're out there rioting and burning things and tearing things apart. And, part of me can't blame them, or part of me doesn't blame them. I mean, I still blame them because they're the humans doing it, but
responsible for their actions for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, I get why it's happening to some degree because they weren't taught to control this.
Yeah.
So when you're angry at the world and you're mad at the world and it isn't going the way you want, I guess that I would probably do that too. Like you're going to lash out. We all felt like doing things like that when we were teenagers, but we learned to gain control over it.
Well, I can remember, speaking of us being teenagers and on this subject, I can remember one friend in particular. No, I'm not going to call out his name or anything. I love him to death, even though he probably hates me at this point. We had one friend that was very, very extreme in his emotions, like chaotic. He just lived chaotically.
Okay.
And everything was chaotic. I mean, just that he wasn't happy unless if things were chaos. And it's not one of our really, really close friends. I'm going to say that too, so that way none of them are thinking, oh yeah, that's me. No, it's probably not you if you're thinking that. Anyways, he did not have any reason to control himself. He was given everything. He was, he had it rough, and then he didn't, and then everything was good. There was just a total lack of control in his life, and he loved chaos. And when he got upset, he would always throw a temper tantrum. And it's like, that's what most people's experiences are nowadays. They weren't raised. They weren't given honor instructions. They weren't given responsibilities, like you were saying. And now they act more like chaotic animals because they don't know how to control themselves when things don't go their way.
Yeah, and to be honest, you're describing like a few of our friends.
Am I? Okay, so I have one in mind.
No, but it's okay. It's okay because that shows how common that is.
Yeah, totally. And by the way, anybody watching this or for our friends, I love you. Don't think I don't. Really do.
In fact, you love them enough to try to understand them.
Yes.
And that's what you're doing. So you're trying to understand them. And the weird thing is and I think you've done this, but I think you've done this too, but I've come to the point where I understand that in a different circumstance, I could have been that.
Totally.
Totally. Because like I said, I've seen that I'm capable of not controlling myself. And, I grew up with a pretty good structure for self-control and things like that. I had a good male role model, more than one. And whatnot. I also had a pretty chaotic and violent, situation as well. But it's kind of like that taught me how to handle those things, right? The situation out of the mind and stuff like that. And that gave me tools. Well, then now it's like you grow up 20 years later. It's, you got bills, you got people that you're responsible for. I mean, literally their well-being, their ability to eat tonight is up to you tonight, today. You better do what you got to do today. Like I get it, because there's times where you feel stressed and there's a breaking, you could get close to like a breaking point. You might want to just like, so I mean, you want to fall into that chaos because it feels easier at that time. It won't be. You have to remember, it won't be.
It'll be worse. It'll guarantee you it'll be worse.
Yes. So
speaking of your upbringing, real quick, just speaking of your upbringing and everything, I do want to say this, and I think I've told you this before, but what is largely responsible for me having any honor or anything is largely because of you and like living through your upbringing in the way that I got to. I wouldn't be the man that I am today had we not have been friends and I had not grown up with that, because I was dangerously close to the other spectrum. Like I would say I'd more lean to the other spectrum until our friendship and where we were, and I saw, what honor is and a code and things like that. Had it not been for you and your grandpa, who I view as a grandpa of mine as well, and your grandma and that, I would not be the man that I am today, guaranteed.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. Yeah, that's awesome. The fact of the matter is I probably wouldn't be what I am without you guys, you and Frankie and Chewy and all that too, because like, no matter what, it's like flip sides to the same coin, and it's good to surround yourself around, as long as it's the same coin, right? As long as it's some sort of like-mindedness. But seeing this, we had a very, our group of friends was we were the misfits.
Yeah.
Of our youth in that area. We were, it was a very weird mix. I had the cowboy thing going on. Chewy's the metalhead. Frankie, I don't even know how to describe him, is this Puerto Rican American, like, acrobatic, guy. Like, I don't know how to describe him.
He was the cool guy that had more fun hanging out with the misfits, I think, is the best way to describe him.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah. So
I'm not sure enough to say something.
Biggs was the punk, you know what I mean? So we got to see like this melting pot of different perspectives. And we all lived in the same, like, more or less a similar environment, right? Like, we lived in the same culture. We didn't have the same households, but we lived in the same culture. So it was crazy to see. It was crazy awesome to see the different ways that we could view literally the same stuff and the same geography. The Trujillos and stuff. We grew up with them. So, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. We all ended up in different places. Some of us totally different ideas and cultures and ethics and everything. It's so vastly different. And some to our detriment, some to our gain. But I like I said, I owe a lot of the man that I am today to you and your grandpa, though, and just because but that highlights how important being raised is.
It's very important. And like I said, it's like, so for as men, it's important to have an example of what a man should be. And it's also important that we have, strong women in our lives, Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, like I've said, the standards set for men can be met, not only met, but set by women. I woke up at the mine every day at like sun up to my grandma out there moving wood piles and building things and like using the saw and like hammer and stuff. And she'd be making the greenhouse. And like, this is a woman that is more of a man than most of the men I know, and so it is both ways. Like, it is a little bit, we got to have strong women in our lives too,
Sure.
But it's definitely really important to have a good, at least trying to have a good upbringing, because there's so many people that we know. How many people that we know that didn't really have parents that parented, and where most of them are,
Yeah. To your point, my I think I lost you. It's getting weird. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, that got weird for a second. To your point, my wife works 3 days a week at a factory, 12-hour days. And then I work doing what I do. And then, we come together and we parent and everything else. My wife is incredibly strong, but she also fulfills that gender role of being a woman in such a wonderful way. And that's not a weak thing, by the way. That's a strong thing. And I think we definitely need to not degrade the prominence of feminine or femininity. That is so important too. And unfortunately, modern society once again has really degraded what it is to be a woman by trying to be a man. Both have their value, both are wonderful, both are strong, they're just different. They're just different, and different is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I really like, I really like to frame the way I think about like masculine and feminine this way, the way I'm going to frame it right now. It's kind of like yin and yang, right? An ideal person would want to practice both, right? You're going to naturally lean one way to the other, right? We're men, we're naturally masculine. We're gonna go try to pick up heavy things and throw them. Have you seen boys at a birthday party? Go to a kid's birthday party. If you don't believe me, if you're listening to this and you don't believe me, go to a kid's birthday party. There's gonna be 5 boys running around. It's gonna be like Braveheart. They're gonna have sticks and rocks and rah. There'll be 1 girl probably or 2. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I just had a call come in and it.
Oh, okay.
I'll leave a message.
1 or 2 girls doing it with them. Okay, that's fine. That's good. Mostly, though, most of the girls are going to be off to the corner watching the boys and a couple of the crazy girls, doing this, just being loud and brash and abrasive. And they're going to be like, what are they doing? Like, I can't believe they're doing that. That's the way it is. If you want to see human nature, watch kids. Definitely. Like because they're so just, they are what they are, So I might have lost my train of thought for a second there.
All right. Maybe you get it when I say this. One thing that, sorry, my phone's farting. I don't know if you can hear that or not.
I gotcha.
The notifications are farts. Anyways, one thing that we do though is, if a boy is kind of feminine, instead of calling him out to be more masculine, which I think we should, and I'll explain that, we tell him, oh no, it's okay, be more feminine. And the same thing with the girls on the other side. And here's what we lose. I believe that we grow through struggle. And one of the things that makes us the strongest is struggling. And so a more feminine man, instead of saying, oh no, just be how you are and go more towards the feminine side, maybe it's better that we call them out and say, hey, no, let's get more masculine together and hey, be more masculine. And they're good. Well, it's hard. That means you're going to be better at it than I am. Because you're going to struggle.
At least mentally. Like,
yes.
Yeah. Maybe you'll grow up and you'll always be like, Billy Crystal or something, that's kind of a more feminine dude. But mentally speaking, you'll have the drive and and things like that. And, confrontation. You can do confrontation if you need to, like I said, though, like it's good to do feminine and masculine practices. Like a person should try to practice those things. Like I like music. Okay. I like soft music. I like listening to like Kenny G and stuff. Not like a lot, but like just as an example, like, I got a bonsai tree, I like feminine, quiet, like soft things. I like to go sit by a river and just listen to the water. I would consider that kind of, because it's passive, it's softer, it's not, abrasive. It's good to learn if you can learn how to paint. Not that I've done that, but if you can learn some sort of art or drawing or something that could be perceived as feminine, do that, But also go learn how to fight, go learn how to do the more masculine things, so that it isn't even to say that it's not okay to be a feminine guy. Like I know a lot of feminine guys in jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of feminine, like nerdy, like kind of weaker guys.
Because it's jujitsu, though.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, I mean, but there's a lot of those, but they'll murder you, man. Like they'll rip you apart on the mats. And so like, so it doesn't mean that you can't be a feminine guy, but also
those things that disturb us when we call them feminine or masculine. I think there's masculine traits and feminine traits, and then there's like neutral activities. I don't think passiveness or calmness should be a feminine trait at all. I think that's the both can be feminine or masculine. Passivity, peacefulness, and those calmness can be both masculine and feminine. It's in their expression that changes it.
Sure, you know, it's in sure. And you could take literally everything and apply a certain amount of understanding of masculine and feminine to it. You know, yeah. I mean, understand that what I was trying to describe was a broad generalization.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because where femininity or where masculinity creates boldness, femininity creates beauty. So I paint, and usually when I paint with boldness. It might even be described beautiful sometimes. However, if you look at my wife's drawings, because she's an artist and she can draw, man. Her lines and the way the curves that she draws and everything, you have this innate feminine quality to it that is just gorgeous and beautiful. And it's not that we aren't both doing art. We're both doing art. We're both creating beautiful things. But it's in the expression of those beautiful things where you see the difference of masculine and feminine. And really those distinctions, man, I think are so important because they increase the struggle. They make us better. And we've been on this topic for a long time. And so sorry, but it's I think it's important right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And well, so like, you know, a lot of it is in comparison to yourself too. So it's like, if I were to try to paint something right now, okay, I would be trying I would probably be trying to create a beautiful thing, right? And then compared to someone else who does do who like would paint in a feminine way, you know. Now I'm trying to because I want to balance out my masculine, you know, like hard to soft, masculine to feminine. You know, I'm trying to do something different than what I normally do. Okay, that's so maybe I'm trying to be feminine about the way I'm trying to paint or make music or something. Someone else who actually leans that way will probably still view what I paint as masculine. Like, you know what I mean? If they looked at it, because that's the way I am. So, I mean, it isn't to say that that isn't the case. My thing is, it is good to try to go the other way sometimes. So if you got a boy who is coming out fairly masculine or fairly feminine, it isn't to say that that's not okay. That's okay. Also practice this stuff though. Also try to be a little bit more masculine sometimes, because sometimes you're going to need to, and that's the bottom line. Is sometimes you're going to need to do
raising children. And so, like for me, with children though, you're raising children. Mm-hmm. And for me, what happens is you know, let's say you have a boy who prefers pink and he wants to wear pink. I'm going to be old school there and say, you know what? There's nothing wrong with telling that boy, hey, that's you know, a girl's expression. Let's move towards more masculine expression. Not because I think pink is somehow magically feminine.
I was wearing a pink gi last night at jiu-jitsu, a hot pink gi. I got one.
No, wrong with that.
Yeah, no, I know.
But what I'm saying is, in the child's mind, though, I am trying to increase the understanding of the difference between men and women. Mm-hmm. You know, has nothing to do with the color. It has everything to do with the standard. The standards are important. It's the standards that make us stronger and make us fulfill our roles better. Well, everybody thinks we need to get rid of the standards, and no, if pink was considered in our culture, if pink was considered a boy color and blue was considered a girl color, I would do the exact same thing if that was reversed, because the color doesn't matter. It's the standard that matters, I think.
I see what you're saying. No, I can see that, and there is a correlation between sensory perceptions like sounds and colors and things like that, and like literally physical things, that it has physical manifestations and stuff. So I mean, yeah, I can get that. Um, you know, I just thought I just was trying to point out that I thought it was funny that you know you walk, if anyone thought that it was about the color, you wouldn't have been okay with me wearing a pink gi. Let me put it that way.
Exactly.
Like if anyone, you wouldn't have been like, oh, okay, because you know damn well I'm a man. It's just not like you're getting that vibe if I wore a pink gi. I got that thing for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and then we had wear it every once in a while. Because another thing was, I think at some points, one of the teenage kids in the class was all like, I'd feel, I don't know about wearing pink. Because we were talking about Breast Cancer Month, and he was like, I don't know about that. No, I want to be tough and stuff like that. I'm like, I will kick people's asses wearing pink, just fine. Is
pink? If you can't be tough wearing pink, then you're not tough.
Yeah. So, but that's doing it consciously and not like, oh, look at this color, That's doing it consciously. That's being like, I'm going to wear this color just to kind of make a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're secure in your masculinity, there's nothing wrong with that. But we're trying to, in a child's mind, seed that because it will make them stronger when they get older.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. I mean, it is such a huge importance, though, to make sure you're raising people with responsibility, though. I think that's such a huge thing that's like missing right now.
Yes.
And it's not, they think they're doing responsibility. Like, let's say you're talking about the far left because they're quote unquote woke. Right. They think they're being responsible, right? But the fact that they're really not. They're not being responsible for their own actions, right? In a lot of ways. And I'm, like I said, I'm talking about the extreme left, not like people who are,
I know what you mean.
I'm talking about the ones that are out there protesting and burning things. That's who I'm talking about, And that's the case with anybody who does damaging things on the far right too. I'm just saying, most of the time people on the far right that are doing those kind of damaging things aren't doing it under the guise of creating a better world for people while destroying it. That's kind of the difference. It's weird things going on. Yeah. So another one of those archetype like things, like movie things that I think, and oddly enough, this is a Disney movie, and we've been kind of crapping on Disney a little bit, but this is an older Disney movie before when we were kids, and they hadn't quite gone straight to the follow your heart thing as much. Like I feel like that's way worse in the last 10 or 15 years than it was, say, 20 years ago. And so, like Beauty and the Beast. Did you see the new live action one?
Yeah.
I was disappointed about one scene in that. Like I could go on and on about how I hated the music in the new one, but I loved the cartoon when I was a kid. I thought it was great. And but my favorite part was that scene at the end when the Gaston's going through, he's monologuing, he's raging, and then the Beast is he's blended in with the gargoyle. He's in the shadows, and he's coming up behind Gaston. I was like, yes, it's awesome. And I never really understood why I liked that part so much. And then I don't even remember what got me thinking down this rabbit hole, but this is an important thing for women, is that the Belle is being the woman of the story. She's not interested in all these other guys. Early in the movie, she's going through, and there's all these dudes. They seem like decent guys, and they all are looking at her and stuff. She's not even interested. The only dude that had a shot with her in that movie was the librarian. at the beginning, and she would patronize Gaston because he gave her attention or whatever, but she didn't like him, right? Because he was a jerk, you know.
And he's let's be honest, he is the picture of true toxic masculinity.
Like masculine toxicity. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's part of the point. But she's not, she's not interested in any of these guys. And I'm like, okay, why? Well, then later, she's with the Beast, right? Okay, she's interested in the Beast. This guy's literally a beast, right? She's not interested in these guys that weren't the Beast, that weren't that weren't capable of. Well, the fact is they were all capable. That's the bottom line. But she wasn't interested in the guy that wasn't the Beast. She was interested in the one that showed voluntary control. And part of the story arc was him developing that voluntary control. Yes. He had to meet her halfway. He started out as a kind of a jerk, but that's part of the story arc. But that's what she was interested in, and that scene. Then at the end, all Gaston has to do is spread a little bit of fear. Just a little bit of fear. And that all those nice guys, quote unquote nice guys, were ready to mob and destroy, and burn everything apart, burn everything to the ground and kill the Beast, right? And the bottom line is they weren't not beasts. They were beasts. They just didn't have any strength as a man to have any of that under voluntary control. And that goes back to what we were saying about, you got to have responsibility. You got to address that capacity for dark and kind of violent things that we're capable of doing it, and learn how to do it, and learn how to have it under control. And then that's why I like that scene so much, is because Gaston is not under control. He's raging. He's monologuing, and the Beast has it under control, and it gave him a tactical advantage. Not only did it give him a ethical advantage in regards to his life and getting the girl and stuff, but it gave him a tactical advantage having it under control. It wasn't anger, it was determination. And in the live action one, they didn't have that, and I was so disappointed. It's a 30-second scene. It's like a 10-second scene. But to me, it was so important. I was like, they went away from it. So even when they take a movie that they're like doing almost scene for scene remake, they screwed it up, and it turns into more of the they went more of the follow your heart way. They gave the dad some weird follow your heart songs and things like that, But that cartoon of that, it's actually a very good understanding of how people are, and how men are and stuff, and why you need to have that under control, discipline, responsibility,
So, hey, I actually gotta take off now.
Okay.
But we should do this again next month and talk about like things like survival and hunting and fishing, maybe.
Let's do that.
Not the world stuff.
Yeah. Sorry about that, but I think it's good to talk about this stuff. Yeah. Yeah, let's start making a monthly thing out of this if you want,
We can trade up. Maybe we'll put it on my YouTube channel next.
Okay, cool. And then we'll do hunting and fishing and whatnot. So
yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'll talk to you later, man. I'm gonna let you go.
Bro. Bye.
All right, bye.